We're in the Gemara on the top of Chav Zayin and Medalef, 4 lines from the top. It said in the Mishnah, Eilu hein mamodos. The following are the mamodos, and then it goes on later to say the mamodos refers to the psukim that the people that were representing Klal Yisrael for the Karbanis would say. And then the Mishnah says, Lefi shenemar tzavos b'nei Yisrael. It says in the pasuk tzavos b'nei Yisrael. Frek the Gemara, my kamar. What is the Mishnah saying? The Mishnah asks a question, or it says, Eilu hein mamodos. I'm going to tell you what the mamodos are, and then it doesn't go on to say what the mamodos are. Instead, it brings a pasuk. So the Gemara explains simple. Hachi kamar. This is how you have to understand the Mishnah. Eilu hein mamodos. It starts saying these are the mamodos, and the Mishnah will later say what they are. The psukim that you say in Bereshis. But then, before it says what they are, it tells you umatam tiknu mamodos. What is the reason that they instituted that there should be mamodos, and that's why it brings the pasuk. So the question is, if this is a carbon that all of Klal Yisrael, the tzibur has to bring, so how could you bring the carbon if they're not standing by the carbon, al gabov by the carbon? Skinu neviim arishainim. Therefore, the earlier neviim, which is Shmuel and David HaMelech, instituted Esrim v'arba mishmarais, that are 24 mishmarais of the Kayanim that are doing the Aved in the Beis HaMikdash. And I'll call mishmar o mishmar haya maimid b'Yerushalayim. Also, for each one of these 24 mishmarais, there was also a group of a maimid of Yidden that were in Yerushalayim, and this maimid was also made up of shal Kayanim, shal Leviim, and shal Yisraelim. Higi man mishmar lalos. The time of the mishmar to go up to Yerushalayim came. Kayanim, Leviim, Oilam Yerushalayim. The Kayanim go up to do their Aveda of bringing the Karbanis, and the Leviim go up to do their Aveda to Yerushalayim to sing by the Karbanis, as the Mishnah continued. Yeah. The Maimed itself, there's a machlekes Rishonim about it. From Rashi, it's mashma that the Maimed itself also had, Kayanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim in it. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braise, Esrim, Varba, Mishmaris, the 24 Mishmaris of the Kainim. So this is talking about the Mishmaris of the Kainim that do the Aveda, the Beis HaMikdash. Eretz Yisrael, that were in Eretz Yisrael. Shtei Mesrei b'Yerichai, and there were 12 that were in Yerichai. That's the Braise. So it seems like that there were 24 in Eretz Yisrael in general, and then there was another 12 in Yerichai. Frek the Gemara, Shtei Mesrei b'Yerichai, if the Braise is saying that there's another 12 in Yerichai, Nefishilu Tuva, then there's more than we know that there was. It says that it was only 24, but over here it would be 36. Elo, so the Gemara answers. Let's see. Elo, the Gemara answers. Shtei Mesrei mehen b'Yerichai. There was 12 of these 24 that were in Yerichai. And the Gemara explains, when it came the time for that group, for that family of Kainim to go up for their week to the Beis HaMikdash, Chatzia Mishmar, half of the Mishmar, Haya Oila Me'eretz Yisrael, would come from, one second, let's just finish the Indian. So half of the Mishmar would go up from Eretz Yisrael to Yerushalayim. They would go to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, to do the Aveda. V'chatzia Mishmar, and then another half of the Mishmar, Haya Oila Mi Yerichai. So there's two girsas here in the Gemara. Let's first do Rashi's girsa. Rashi says that the girsa is Haya Oila Li Yerichai. That another half of the Mishmar would not actually go all the way to Yerushalayim to do the Aved in the Beis HaMikdash. They would only go up to a city Yerichai, which apparently is not far from Yerushalayim. And what would they do there? Kadeshi Yisapku Mayim Umazayim La'achayim Shei B'Yerushalayim. And their job was to make sure that the other part of the family that's doing the Aveda and that week in the Beis HaMikdash should have water and food that they need in the Beis HaMikdash. That's the pshat of Rashi. The Rabbeinu Gershom says that we're greatest in the Gemara, like it says it by us, Me Yerichai, and he says the pshat is that half of these families of the Kayanim would live all over Eretz Yisrael, and they would have to travel from far places to come to Yerushalayim. So because they were traveling from far places, they couldn't schlep with them the food that they needed for the week that they're going to be spending in Yerushalayim. But there was another half of the Mishmarais that would live nearby. They lived in Yerichai all year. So when it comes their time, they shouldn't have to travel far to come to the Beis HaMikdash. They would travel from Yerichai to the Beis HaMikdash, and because they're not traveling far, they were able to bring for everybody else the food and the drink that's necessary to do the work in the Beis HaMikdash. That's Rabbeinu Gershom's pshat. So these are the 24 mishmaris.
You say 24 mishmaris. Mm-hmm. And you say Kohen Leviim Yisrael. How many of each?
Yeah.
That's number one. That's the first question. Second one, when you say my mother's, you said the mother's are because of the Israel, not because of the Kayan.
Correct.
So we have two different things over here.
Yeah, and a Chanami. We're talking about two different Yanim. There's the Mishmarais of the Kayanim that do the Aveda, and then there's the Mamad. How many Mishmarais were there? 24. 24 Mishmarais. There was 24 Mishmarais of Kayanim. There was 24 Mishmarais of Leviim as well that sang. Also, they were all divided in 24. And there were 24 Mishmarais of Yisraelim, which actually wasn't only Yisraelim according to Rashi. There were also Kayanim and Leviim there. Kayanim, Leviim, Yisraelim for the Mishmarais that came to say the Psukim and to do whatever the Marmodes did in the times that their family had to be there for the Karbanas. So they were all divided in 24.
So the Marmodes were not only for Yisrael.
Correct. Yeah. Amar Rav Yudah Mashmuel, Kayanim, Leviim, Yisraelim. You have to have all three, Kayanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim. And Ma'akvin is a carbon. And they hold up the carbon. If you're not going to have any of them that are there, then the carbon is not good. It has to be redone. The Kayanim to do the Aveda, the Leviim to sing, and the Yisraelim for the Maimed, to be there to say the Psukim and to do what they do by the Maimed. The Masnita Tana, and Abraisa it says differently. Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, Kayanim, Leviim, and some add here Yisraelim, because the main point that he's arguing about, he doesn't disagree with the fact that you have to have Yisraelim. So Kayanim, Leviim, and maybe even Yisraelim as well, if you guide it. And then the main thing he adds is the Klei Shir. You have to add the musical instruments, Ma'akvin es HaKarbon. Otherwise, it holds back the carbon of being good. So what are they arguing about? So basically, you see their argument is it enough to have the Leviim there to sing, or do you also have to have the musical instruments? So the opinion of the first Braisa is Ika Shira Bepeh. The main Aveda of the Leviim to sing is to sing with their mouth, with their voices. And you also have the musical instruments to accompany their singing, to make it more beautiful. But that's not Ma'akiv. But Amar Sava, the second Braisa holds Ika Shira Bekeli. Now the main Shira is when they sing with the musical instruments. That's the main Elamai. In order for the musical instruments to be accompanied with something beautiful, so you have the voices of the Kayanim singing. Amarav Chama Bar Goryeh Amarav Moshe Tikkun Lem Yisrael. So here the Gemara brings the source of this number of 24 Mishmarais of the Kayanim that do the Aved in the Beis HaMikdash. How did it come to the number of 24? So in the Mishnah it said Nevi'im Rishainim were masakin this. So the Gemara says it didn't happen in one time. There was different stages to this. So Moshe was masakin for Yidden Shmeina Mishmarais. That in the beginning they only had divided into 8 different mishmaris. Arba me Elazar, 4 from the family of Elazar, and Daled me Isamar, and another 4 from the family of Isamar. Then later on, Ba Shmuel, when there were more Kayanim, so Shmuel came, V'amidem al Sheish Esra, and he established them to be 16 different mishmaris. Then later on, Ba David, V'amidem al Esra Varba, and David HaMelech established them to be 24, and that's where you have the number of 24. Shenema, there's a pasuk that says, B'shnas Arbaim lo Malchus David, Nidrishu v'yamotzibem Gebeirich Achayel b'Yazer Gilad, in the time of the 40th year of the kingdom of David HaMelech, then they found the Gebeirich Achayel, which refers to the Kayanim. So in the pasuk here, you don't see the number of 24, but if you look earlier in the pasuk there in Divrei Yamim, it says b'feidish there the number of 24 regarding the mishmaris of the Kayanim. So when was this? By the time of the Melucha of David HaMelech. Meisvei. So the Gemara asks on this. In a Braisa it says, Moshe Tikkun Lem Yisrael Shmeina Mishmarais, that Moshe was masakin for Yidden the 8 Mishmarais, Arba me Elazar, V'arba me Isamar. Exactly like Rav said. So this is the same as he said. But then the Braisa says, Ba David u'Shmuel v'amidam al esrim v'arba, that it was David and Shmuel together that established it to be 24. Shanama, there's a pasuk that says, Heima Yasad David u'Shmuel haraya b'emunasam, that they both established together, David and Shmuel haraya. Haraya means the prophet. That so how can we say? How did Rav say that Shmuel made it 16 and only David HaMelech is the one that made it 24? And for the Gemara, Hachika Amar, this is what this Braisa means. Mi Yisaidai shel David u'Shmuel haramasi hamidam al esrim arba. That if from the both together, they both instituted together to bring it to the number of 24. Not that Shmuel actually brought it to the number of 24, but he was the beginning of the process to make it in a larger number to 16. And then David brought it to 24. Tanya, we learned in a different Braisa, or others are actually guided here, Meisvei, because this is another question that the Gemara is going to ask on what Rav said. Rav said that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesakin 8 Mishmaris, 4 from Elazar, 4 from Isamar. And this Bryce it's going to say that he was Mesakin, Moshe was Mesakin much more. So the Bryce says, Moshe Tikkun Lem Yisrael, Sheish Eshter Mishmaris, 16 Mishmaris, Shmeinim Elazar, Shmeinim Isamar, 8 from the family of Elazar and 8 from the family of Isamar. And then Ekesherabu B'nei Elazar al B'nei Isamar. Eventually, the Kainim that came from the family of Elazar were much more than the family of Isamar. Cholkom, they divided it again. And then Midim Alesrim Varba. And now they divided it into 24. Shenema Vayamotzu B'nei Elazar Rabim L'Roshei Agvarim Min B'nei Isamar. The people, the Kainim from B'nei Elazar were much more from the people of Isamar. Vayachlakom L'Vnei Elazar Roshim L'Vei Savais Shisha Asar. So now what happened is, the Bnei Elazar were 16, they divided them into 16. And the Bnei Yisamar were 8. And V'aymer, there's another pasuk that says, Beis Av Echad Ochoz LaElazar, that for Elazar, they added another Ochoz. Whatever he had until now, they added one more for each Mishmar that he had. In other words, in the beginning, Bnei Elazar were 8, they added one more for each one of them. They subdivided each one of them, so it became 16. That's for Elazar. And for Achos le'Isamar. Achos le'Isamar means whatever Isamar had originally, which was 8, he remained with that. That Achos, what he was holding on to, what he had originally, he remained with the number of 8. So the Gemara explains why the Brisa brings another pasuk. Why is it bringing a second pasuk? Because if you'll argue and say, just like the family of Elazar became larger, and therefore they would double their mishmaros, they divided each one into 2. So maybe we could say that by Bnei Yisamar, when it gives the number 8, that's also maybe because they grew into the number of 8, and Meikara Arba Havu, and maybe Bnei Yisamar in the beginning were 4. So Elazar in the beginning was 8, and they became 16. And maybe Bnei Yisamar in the beginning were 4, and now they became 8. Toshama, that's why he brings the pasuk where it says, Beis Av Echad Ochoz LeElazar, that for Elazar, for each mishmar that they already had, they added one Beis Av, so they doubled each one of them, or they divided each one of them. And for Ochoz LeEsamar. But by Isamar, whatever he was holding on to, that's what he had. So what's the point? So the Gemara concludes, to Yufte the Rav Chama Bar Guria. This refused what Rav Chama Bar Guria said in the name of Rav, that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesakin 4 Mishmaris for Elazar and 4 for Isamar. Here it says 8 for each, was what it was originally by Moshe Rabbeinu.
You can answer that the lineage of Elazar was more, so they eventually, but the question is l'chatchila. In the beginning, 1 second. The question, what were 4 and 4?
Yeah, okay.
And then the times of Shmuel and David.
No, but we're not talking about Shmuel and David. We're talking about originally. The question is, what did Moshe Rabbeinu himself do? So Rav said that it was 4 and 4 that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesakin, and the Brisa says that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesakin 8 and 8, not later. Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesakin 8 and 8. That's what it says. So the Gemara answers, Amul of Rav Chama Bar Guria, Tanoi. This is a machlekes Tanoim. And I follow the Tana that says that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mesakin in total 8 mishmaros, 4 for Elazar and 4 for Isamar. That was the Brisa that the Gemara quoted before. And there at Befedish said, like Rav Chama Bar Guria said in the name of Rav, that it's 4 and 4. Tana Rabbanon and a Brisa we learned regarding the mishmaros that there were in the second Beis HaMikdash. Arba mishmaros alam and agayla. There were only 4 mishmaros from all the 24. Only 4 of them came up. The rest did not want to come, as it's known that a lot of the Yidden did not want to come back to Yerushalayim. And ve'elohein, the 4 families were Yedaya, Chorim, Pashchur, ve'emar. So what happened? Omnu neviim shebinayim. So the prophets that were amongst them got up and v'cholkom ve'midum alesrim v'arba. They went and they divided these families into 24, which means that if you're going to divide from 4 to 24, so they divided each one of them into 6. 4 times 6 is 24, so they had to take 4 and divide them into 6. What do? Balalum v'nasnum bekalfi. So they made a geidel, a lottery. So they took pieces of paper or whatever it was, and they put it in a box, and they mixed it all up in a box. So, for example, the family of Yedaya, the first one. So this family of Yedaya had probably different names of different people in the family. So they went and they took his name, Yedaya, and put it into the box. And then besides that, they had all the other names as well. And v'notal chelkoi, he took his chelik out of the box, his name. Okay, I guess that was Beruach HaKodesh, that he took his name out of the box. And then the chelik chaveirov, and then also the chelik of the other names of his friends. So that's sheish. So that's in total 6. Then Bo Chorim came, the Notal Chelkoi, he took his name, and the Chelik Chaveirov, and then the names of other 5 names, so again also divided into Sheish, and V'chein Pashcha, V'chein Eimar. So this is how they subdivided each one of these, the divisions of 4 was divided into 24. V'chein Hisnu Nevi'im Shebineim. And then besides this, the Nevi'im amongst them made the following condition. Sha'afile Yehoyadiv, or the right girsa here is supposed to be Yehoyadiv, which was Reish Mishmaris. Yehoyadiv, originally, when they made the 24 Mishmaris in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, so Yehoyadiv was the first of all the families to come do the Aveda. So even if he, which was the Reish in the first Beis HaMikdash, Oile, if he's going to now decide to come back to the Beis HaMikdash, Lo Yitche Yidayet Mimkaimai. Yidayet, which now became the first of these 4 families, he's never going to be pushed off of his place of being the first. El Yidayet Iker v'Yehoyadiv or Yehoyadiv Tafula. Yehoyadiv is going to be Tafel, which means if Yehoyadiv is going to come up, so they'll have to take away one family from Yidayet, but they'll take away that 6th family, and Yehoyadiv will take the place of the 6th family, but he's not going to take the place of Yidayet to get back his original position, because he did not want to come up to Eretz Yisrael originally when the Yidden came up with Ezra, so therefore he never can go back to his original place.
Why can't he get everything? He shouldn't be getting anything.
He shouldn't be getting anything. Huh?
Yeah,
okay, they didn't take it away completely from him, but he can't go back to his original position. It said in the Mishnah, V'Yisrael shaboisei mishmer miskansim bareim v'koyrim b'maisa bereishis. So you had the Maimados, I pointed this out in the Mishnah, Rashi explained this there, the Maimados are divided into 2. There are the Maimados of the Yidden that came to be there in Yerushalayim by the Karbonis. And then there's the Maimados of the Yidden in the cities, wherever they live, that they gather together to say these psukim that the Mishnah says, they read from the Torah, from Bereshis. So the Gemara... Yeah, it's true. We'll see in the Gemara in a moment. So the Gemara Minoan Emili. So the first thing the Gemara asks is, from where do I know, or really the Gemara is asking, what is the reason that they read from the Psukim in Maisa Bereshis? Yaakov Bar Ache Omer Avasi, because Almale Mamadais, if not for these Mamadais that are there by the Karbonis, so what are in other words, what's the point of these Mamadais? They're representing Klal Yisrael by the Karbonis, and the Karbonis are being brought for what purpose? As a kapara for the Yidden. So therefore, if not for these Mamadis that enable these Karbonis, Leiniskayim v'Shamayim v'Aretz, you wouldn't have the whole creation of heaven and earth, wouldn't exist. Shanama, the Pasuk says, Vayomer Hashem Elokim, the Eibishter says, or that is Avram Avinu says, to the Eibishter, B'moed Akir Hashena. How do I know that I'm going to inherit this land? So what was Avram Avinu saying? Oma Avram, Rebbeinu Shalom, Shema, so again, Shema Yisrael Chaytan Lefanecha. What happens if the Yidden are going to sin to you? So what are you going to do? You're going to do to them the same thing that you did to the Dera Mabel and Dera Floga and destroy them. So how do I know that my children are not, it's not going to happen to them the same thing? Amalei, so the Eibishter says to him, Lav, no, I won't do this. Amalafanov, so he says to the Eibishter, Rebbeinu Shalom, Haydiyeni b'mei Reshena. So let me know how, with what do I know for sure that my children will not be wiped out and they're going to inherit this land? What is it that's going to be their schos that the Avedis are not going to affect them? Amalei, so the Eibishter tells him, Choli eglo mishuleshes, this is by the Brisbane Apsonim, bring me a calf divided into 3, ve'ez mishuleshes, and a goat divided into 3. What was the Eibishter saying with all these animals? Amalafanov. So what the Eibishter was saying to him is that the Yidden will bring karbanis, and the karbanis are going to be mechaper on their Avedis, and therefore they're for sure going to inherit Eretz Yisrael, and the Eibishter will not wipe them out. Amalafanov, and then he says to the Eibishter further, but Rebbeinu Shalayla, Taina, Basman Beis HaMikdash Kayim. This is all good when they have a Beis HaMikdash. Bisman Shein Beis HaMikdash Kayim Mate'alem, but when there's no Beis HaMikdash, what's going to be with the Yidden? Amalai, the Eibishter says to Avram, Kvartikantilem Seder Karbanis. I was misaken for the Yidden, the Seder of the Psukim of the Karbanis that it says in the Torah. Bisman Shekairim them. When the Yidden read from these Karbanis, Lefanai, in front of me, Mailani Alem Kilo Krivim Lefanai. I consider it as if they brought these karbanis, Va'ani Moichalem Al Kol Avenisayim, and I'll forgive them for all their sins by reading the psukim of the karbanis. So this is the conversation between the Eibishter and Moshe Rabbeinu. So what do you see from here? That the Karbanis are here to be Mechapa for the Yidden. If you would not have Karbanis, so then the Eibishter would wipe out the Yidden. And if the Eibishter would Chas v'Shalom do that, so then the whole world would be destroyed. So therefore, the Karbanis is what holds up heaven and earth. So therefore, what do the Maimonides read from the Torah in connection to the Karbanis? The Psukim of Bereishis, the Psukim of creation, because it's the Karbanis that allow the creation to continue existing.
Yeah, we also see over here that Avram wanted that, wasn't satisfied just with the fact
Bisman Shabbos Hamikdash Kayam?
Yeah, because he wanted that there should be Yerush what's the word they use over here?
Yerush the land. That he's talking about Mamoy the Kiyir Shena.
Yeah, but then he's worried about what's going to be after.
Correct? No.
So which way? But afterwards there wasn't no Beis Hamikdash.
There's no Beis Hamikdash, but the Yidden are still here. So it's the Yidden are Kayam. The Yidden are still Kayam. Yeah.
That wasn't his problem. His problem was Ereshena.
Okay, but then afterwards, he's asking the Eibush, he said the Lashon that it brings in the Braise is that they shouldn't do like the Doira Mabel and Doira Floge. So that Indian is even today. Tana Rabbanon, so in the Braise we learned about the groups of Yidden of the Maimonides. So Anshe Mishmar, Hayim Ispalalim al Karban Archayim, She Iskabel Beratzen. The Anshe Mishmar, so they would daven, so this is the Mishmarais, the groups of the Yidden that were in Yerushalayim. So as again, going back to the point I mentioned before, these Mishmarais of the Yidden that were standing to represent Klal Yisrael and the Karbanis, there are those that are in Yerushalayim, and there are those that are in all the cities. So the Mishmar refers to those, this is, if you look in Rashi, there's two girses here in Rashi, but the right girses, the Bach says in Rashi is that the Mishmar refers to those that are in Yerushalayim. So what would they do there? They would daven to the Eibishter for the carbon of all their brothers, of all the Yidden, Sheyiskabel beratzen, that it should be accepted by the Eibishter. In Yerushalayim. This is in Yerushalayim. I said there's another girse in the Bach. So this refers to the Yidden in Yerushalayim. Anshe Maimed. Then there was the Anshe Maimed, which is also the Yidden representing Klal Yisrael as well, but they were not in Yerushalayim. Wisconsin lebeis haknesses. In whatever city they were, they would come together in the shul. The Yeshvin Dalet Tainis, and they would fast 4 days a week. B'Sheni, b'Shabbos, b'Shlishi, b'Revi, b'Chamishi, like we learned in the Mishnah, until Thursday. And then they would read from the Psukim of the Torah, as we said, from Bereishis and so on. And they would also be fasting. There's actually Machlekes Rishonim whether the Anshe Mishmar, which were the ones that were in Yerushalayim, did they also fast? Did they also do these things? Or did they just daven, Sheyiskablu beratzen, and that's it? So it's a Machlekes about it, huh? It's not clear. So according to Rashi, I believe, in the Mishnah, Rashi says that even the Anshe Mishmar in Yerushalayim also would fast and would also do all these things. But other Rishonim say no, that the fasting and all these things was only for the Anshe Maimed that were not Yerushalayim, that were in their cities, and they would go into Beis HaKnesses and they would fast and read from the Psukim. So now the Gemara explains regarding the Psukim that they read, how this brought a protection for the Yidden. So the Gemara explains as follows. B'Shlishi al Yardei Ayam. On the second day, on Monday when they fasted, so they were fasting for the people that are traveling overseas. And what's the connection to what they would actually read from the Torah on that day? So Rashi says, what would they read on the second day? So they would read Yehira Kiya B'Soich HaMayim, which is connected to people that are traveling in the water. B'Shlishi Al Hoilchem Midbaris. On Tuesday, when they would fast and read from the Torah, they were fasting for the Yidden that are traveling through deserts. Why? Because on Tuesday they read from what it says, V'Seirah Hayabasha, the dry land, the dangers there are in dry land. B'Revi al Askara. Regarding on Wednesday was regarding those people that could die with askara, which is some kind of illness that comes up in the throat, from the stomach to the throat, and it could kill people. So Rashi says, because it says Yihi Ma'oiros, and Ma'oiros could also be read Ma'oras, which is this illness. Shlei tipul al atinaikis, it shouldn't affect children. B'Chamishi, on Thursday, al Ubrais umenikais. They would daven for pregnant women and for nursing women. Ubra shelo yapilu, women that they should not miscarry, and meinika sheyaniku as b'neihem, that the children should nurse properly. So this is connected to what it says Yishutzu Amayim Sheretz Nefesh Chaya that they read on Thursday. On Be'erev Shabbos lehoyim misanin. On Friday they did not fast with Pnei Kavod Shabbos because of the honor of Shabbos. And Kavachayim b'Shabbos Atzma, most definitely on Shabbos itself they did not fast. And Be'echad b'Shabbos my time beloy. And why on Sunday they did not fast? So there's a few pshatim here. Rabbi Yechanan says Mipnei HaNoitzrim, because of the Goyim. Since the Noitzrim, which literally refers to the Noitzrim, then the Christians, and later generations that created Sunday as their holiday, so therefore we don't want to celebrate the same day as the Noitzrim, or maybe it could be a sakana, if they see that the Yidden are trying to take their day to celebrate, to fast on that day. So the Mefarshim point out that the Noitzrim only came much later, after the second Beis HaMikdash. So how can we say that this is a reason for much earlier time period? So it doesn't refer necessarily to the Noitzrim, it refers to the Goyim. There's actually someone that says, I'm not sure where I saw this, that Noitzrim could be read Noitzarim, which means those that are created. Referring stam to the Goyim, that the Goyim in the world, they celebrate Sunday. So even before the Noitzrim actually came along, apparently the Goyim did consider Sunday to be their holiday. Rab Shmuel...
Besides Noitzarim, what's the word for it? What's the definition?
Noitzrim means Noitzrim, Christians. Rab Shmuel ben Achmeni Amar, Sunday is the third day of the creation of the human being. When was the human being created? On Sunday. And on Friday that is, sorry. And on the Sunday, which is the third day of his creation, the person is very weak. Just like you see, Rashi brings Benegay to the Bris Milah, that it says on the third day of the Bris is the day that the baby is the weakest. It's the same thing also with creation, that on Sunday a person is the weakest, and therefore on Sunday you can't fast. So people think that on Sunday it's like a day that people are weaker because of Chveis, I don't know, after Matzah Shabbos, but the Gemara says no, interesting thing. Sunday is a day that people are weaker because it's the third day of the creation. Shlakish Amar, third reason, Mifnei Neshama Yisera. It's because of the Neshama Yisera that a person had on Shabbos and he was able to eat extra. So to go from there all the way to come then into fasting is very difficult for a person. Amar Shlakish, Neshama Yisera Nitnum by Badam Berev Shabbos. The Eibishter gives a Yid and Neshama Yisera, an extra Neshama right before Shabbos on Friday. And b'matzah Shabbos, when Shabbos is over, Noitel Moisam Yimena, it's taken away from him. Shenemar, Shavas Vayu Nofash. So what does Vayu Nofash mean? Kivin Sheshavas, as soon as Shabbos ends, Vai of the Nefesh. Vayu Nofash makes up these words of Vai of the Nefesh, that a person lost his extra soul that he had on Shabbos.
But you give another different reason. Yes. A fourth reason.
What was the reason that it said in the Mishnah? Wasn't it this last reason? The reason that it says in the Mishnah seems to fit with this reason, that you shouldn't go out from the pleasure of Shabbos. What was the reason it said in the Mishnah? That, no, cover the Shabbos. I don't remember the lashon of the Mishnah over here. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara. So it said, yeah, okay, so that's this last reason. The Einig is this Neshama Yisera. It says, Rashi says in one place that what's the Neshama Yisera? It gives a person a koyach to eat extra. That's what the Mishnah. Rashi here actually says it in a few places. Here also, Rashi says, Marchivim daitay la'achil shtiyah. You could eat extra. So you go from achil shtiyah, now you know why in Shabbos you could eat extra. Yeah, and then you have to fast on Sunday, so it's difficult for a person. So what did it say in the Mishnah? On the first day you read from Bereshis, and then also you read the second day as well, V'yihirikia, until Vayera Vaybayka Yom Sheni. So Tana, we learned in the Braise, Bereshis, the first five psukim of Bereshis, B'shnayim. So that you divide into two aliyahs. Yihirakia, the second day of creation that you read, which is only 3 psukim, Be'echad. That's one aliyah for one person. So the Gemara asks, the fact that the second parsha of the second day of creation, that's one aliyah, that's Tlosa Psukav, it's 3 psukim, which is the minimum that you need for one aliyah. Ela Bereshis B'shnayim, but to divide the first parsha of Bereshis into 2, how could you do this? Hey psukim av, it's only 5 psukim. A Tanan, or the real gersa, the right gersa here is a Tanya. We learn in the Braisa, anyone that is reading from the Torah, al yivchais megimel psukim. You don't read less than 3 psukim. So how could you divide it into 2 kriyas? It has to be at least 6 psukim. So Rav says the way they did it, how did they divide the first parsha into 2? Dailik, you would skip, and skip over here means skipping back. In other words, the first one would read 3 psukim, and then the next one would go back a pasuk and also read 3 psukim. And Taisus here brings that this is what we do in Rosh Chodesh. We go back 1 pasuk in the second aliyah. Shmuel says paisik. What they would do is that third pasuk they would divide it into 2. The first aliyah would read a pasuk, 2.5 psukim that is, and the second aliyah would read 2.5 psukim. Rav so Rav that says that you have to skip back and go and read over a pasuk. My time alama paisik. Why doesn't he say that just take that middle pasuk and divide it into 2? Kasavar, it's because Rav holds, Kol Psukid Le Paskim Moshe, any pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu himself did not interrupt it or cut it into two, Anan Le Paskinon. We also don't divide it. You have to read the full pasuk. Shmuel Ama Paisik, Shmuel said you could divide a pasuk into half. But Umi Paskinon? Do we divide a pasuk of the Torah into half? But Rab Chanina said, Rab Chanina Kra, Rab Chanina that used to teach children Torah. Tsar Gadol Hoyeli, I had a lot of pain. Eitzor Rab Chanina Gadol, by the great Rab Chanina, when I was discussing with him this subject regarding dividing psukim that are in the Torah, because he wanted to divide the psukim when he's teaching children. And V'lo Hitali Lifsaik, he didn't allow me to divide the psukim and read only half of it. Only it's because I was teaching the children, since I'm teaching them, so therefore if they can't read the full pasuk at once, so he allowed me to divide the psukim, but otherwise you're not allowed. So how over here, according to Shmuel, do we divide them? So Shmuel, Hasam, Taimimai, so Shmuel will answer you. Over there, when you teach little children, why are you allowed to divide the pasuk? Mishum de lo because you can't teach them the full pasuk at once. They can't, so you have to divide it. Hachanami lo yafshe. So since over here also, we only have 5 psukim, and we need to have 2 aliyahs, so there's no choice. So in this case, you divide it 2.5 and 2.5. Shmuel Amar Paisik. So Shmuel says you have to divide the pasuk. My time daily. So why does he say that there's no other option? Why doesn't he want to say like what Rav said? Just read over a pasuk again. So the Gemara says he holds, he can't do that. Gzeire mishuma nechnasin, gzeire mishuma yaitzin. There's a gzeire for the people that are coming in and people that are coming out. People that are coming in and they're going to see that you're starting from the 3rd pasuk, so they're going to think that for the first aliyah you only read 2 psukim. Or the people that are leaving and they're going to see that there's only 2 psukim left over, they're going to think that for the next aliyah you're only reading 2 psukim. So therefore we don't want people to make such a mistake that you could give an aliyah 2 psukim. The Gemara asks from a Braise where it says not like Rav and not like Shmuel. Parsha shel shish psukim. If you have a parsha of 6 psukim, kair ma'isa b'shnayim, you could read it and divide it into 2. V'shel chamisha, if you have a pasuk, a parsha that is 5 psukim b'yachid, so then there's only one aliyah. One person reads all 5 psukim. Marishin kaira gimel. If the person read only 3 and he stopped right there, so now you're left with 2 psukim. So hasheni, what does the second person do? Kaira shnayim mi parsha zu. So he'll read 2 from this parsha, ve'echad mi parsha acheres, and he's going to have to read 1 from the next parsha. So let's say when you come to Mafter, and there was only 5 psukim there, and the person that got the aliyah from Mafter only read 3 psukim, and he stopped. So now the next person is going to have to read 2 from this parsha and 2 from the next parsha. And the Yeshayimrim Gimel, and others say that when he's going to have to read from the next parsha, he can't read only 1 pasuk from the next parsha, he has to read 3 psukim from the next parsha. You don't start a new parsha and just read 1 pasuk. You have to read 3 psukim from the next parsha. So now the question is, according to the opinion, according to Rav that says that you skip back, you read over a pasuk, lidlug. So this person, why can't he just read over a pasuk? Why does he have to start a new parsha? And according to Shmuel that says that you could divide a pasuk, so lifsek, so over here, so you let him read half of the previous parsha, half of the previous pasuk that is. Why does he have to read another pasuk from the next parsha? Answers the Gemara, Shani Hasam the Islay Rafcha. There's a difference over there. In that case, he has more. There is another parsha that he could read from, even though it's not the parsha that's supposed to be read today. But if this mistake happens, he could read from the next parsha. Whereas over here, by the Seder of the Psukim of the Mamadais, so you can't read from the next parsha. They had it specifically established what you read the first day and what you read the next day. If you're going to read from the next parsha, you're not going to have what to read for the next day. Each parsha is shayach specifically to that day, as we read before, benegeh to what it represents and the different things of every single day.